Everyone, the Los Angeles Lakers have plenty of youth on this roster, from Austin Reeves to D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, Max Christie, even Anthony Davis is young, as much as people like to say. And I see a lot of comments and just concerns about, when I bring up like a Chris Paul or, whoever, insert, an older player, right? People always go like, oh, like, did you forget the 2021, 2022 season? Or why do you want all these old guys and blah, 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 right? And there's a big difference between the 2021 and 2022 roster and adding Chris Paul to a team that average age is 26, 27 years old, right? Like the problem was with that 2021, 2022 roster is you had a bunch of Chris Pauls on that roster. You had a bunch of old guys on that roster and it just didn't work. Where with the Lakers, you wouldn't have that same issue. You have a bunch of young guys with one old guy in LeBron James, and there's nothing wrong with adding another old guy or two. Every team has those veteran guys, and a lot of them play significant roles. I mean, even Jeff Green was huge for the Denver Nuggets, right? You had the Miami Heat, who had several of those guys, right? And, Kevin Love, guys like that. Like, they even have Udonis Haslem, and we're paying him money just to have him as a veteran locker room guy. And he's a guy that didn't even play. At least Chris Paul could play, right? So this narrative of like, oh, like we don't want old guys, I don't buy into. You need that. You need that leadership. You need guys that have been there and experienced the moments that can show up. Like, right? Like you saw guys like D'Angelo Russell completely disappear. And it's because they haven't been in those environments. They haven't been in those situations. But you get a guy like, a Chris Paul, right? Yes, he's had his concerns and his issues with playoff performances and stuff like that. But he wouldn't be the number one guy. He wouldn't even be the number two guy. He wouldn't even arguably be the number three guy. So there's a big difference, right? Like Rajon Rondo, people had the exact same questions and concerns about Rondo. Oh, he's old. He's not the same player he's been. He can't play defense. He can't score. Like, it's pointless. He just basically would just be a guy just taking up space on the bench. And he was arguably one of our most important, if not our most important factor outside of like LeBron and AD, our most important piece in our championship run. Playoff Rondo was huge for us. And so to get a guy like a Chris Paul, I think would be massive for the Lakers. I think that he comes in, he provides that leadership, he provides that playmaking. You're not going to ask him to play 30 to 40 minutes a game like he did on, a Phoenix Suns or Houston Rockets or things like that, or even, the Clippers. No, you're asking him to come in, give us 20 to 25 minutes a game, be an 8-8 guy per game. You don't need anything crazy like that. Stay healthy, stay focused. You're not going to pay him a bunch. He's not going to be coming in at $30 million a year, something crazy like that. You're in a good spot to bring in a vet. I love the idea of bringing in a Chris Paul and also a Draymond Green. So Draymond Green might be a little unrealistic, so I want to preference that. But if you can bring in Chris Paul and Draymond Green, to me, that's a grand slam offseason because of what both of those guys could provide from a leadership perspective, a guy that has been there, guys that can be glue guys that have competitive just nature and drive, guys that want to win and just don't believe in failure. Like all of those things are very massive. Guys that have been in those experiences, have been in those moments. And the reason I bring up Draymond Green is because Draymond Green is expected to opt out of his contract with the Golden State Warriors, which would make him a free agent. Now, the idea is the Warriors want to retain him and sign him to a new contract, but does that mean that that's what Draymond wants to do? And if Draymond doesn't, then he could go be looking elsewhere. Now, the problem is the Lakers would be very limited in what they could pay him. The Lakers would have to pay one of them basically you could either split it to where both guys get around like 4 to 5 million per year, which maybe they would take, right? Draymond, the reason I think Draymond is a little far-fetched is because he opted out of 27, almost $28 million. And then he's just going to go, to the Lakers to go play $5 million. That's where it kind of gets a little tough. But look, stranger things have happened. His relationship with LeBron James, maybe he makes it a personal thing to like, hey, I'd love to win a championship with another team. Does he really want to go to a team like, say, Detroit? And yes, he could get paid fat, but he's not going to be competing for championships. But could he look at it as like, I'm towards the end of my career? Like, I might as well just get my last little bag. That's a possibility. But he could also very well want to stay in LA. Right? Like, again, assuming things fall through with the Golden State Warriors and they're not able to come to some agreement, I think most likely what happens is Draymond Green ends up signing 4 years, 40 to 60 million, somewhere in that ballpark is what I think will end up happening. But if you can bring in a Draymond Green, who is only 33 years old, right? Like, I'll mention some of these players and people are like, oh, they're old. And I'm like, they're in their prime. Like, 32, 33 years old, like that's their prime. Like that's what the prime is now. Usually your prime is 27 to 32, right? Like if Draymond was 38, I'd be like, sure. And even Chris Paul, yeah, he's old. But again, that's like one old guy next to LeBron. Like that doesn't make your entire team now old. It's not like Chris Paul is 38, and so all of a sudden, everyone on the Lakers roster all gain 5 years. Like, no, it's, you'd still have Austin Reeves, who's 25. You'd still have Rui, who's 25. You can still keep D'Lo, who's 26, 27. You still have Jared Vanderbilt, who's 23. You still have, and all of these guys would provide so much value. Imagine what Draymond Green could do with a guy like Jared Vanderbilt. Jared Vanderbilt already has elite defense. If Draymond could turn him into not even an elite passer, like Draymond is a very good passer, right? But can he turn him into a half playmaking Draymond Green, right? Like could he kind of mold Jared Vanderbilt into a Draymond Green 2.0? That would be fantastic, right? Like if we could get another prime Draymond, because prime Draymond could shoot at a decent clip, right? Like he wasn't elite or great, but he was, he shot respectable enough to where you actually had to respect it, right? So could Draymond's influence on Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura, that could really play a huge role in these guys in their development. Right? Because you got to remember, we only have so many years with LeBron left. So to get guys that could come in, not only make an impact, but can help grow and develop and be these player coaches for these young guys would be massive. Chris Paul, what could Chris Paul do with an Austin Reeves? What could Chris Paul do with the D'Angelo Russell if you keep D'Angelo Russell? That's a value. Like, if the Lakers could bring these two guys in, I think you do that immediately. If you could get, because you're not going to get Draymond Green for $30 million. You're not going to be paying Chris Paul $30 million. You're going to get these guys for less than $10 million combined. Even if they don't play, you still have to round out a roster, right? Like, let's say Draymond and Chris Paul never play a game for the Lakers, right? Like, there's a reason Udonis Haslem and the Miami Heat, who are in the Eastern Conference or the NBA Finals every year, why they pay Udonis Haslem every year to just sit on the bench. It's a reason why the Lakers paid Jared Dudley and wanted to keep Jared Dudley and just pay him to just be a guy on the bench. You have to have a 15-man roster. Most teams don't play 15 guys, right? So even if Chris Paul does get hurt, right? Because that's what people's big concern is. Like, one of those roster spots would have went to somebody that's not going to play anyway. Right? So you just make sure you get a guy that can come in. Like maybe you keep a Dennis Schroeder or something like that, right? Or Scottie Pippen Jr. Bring him in. What could Chris Paul do with Scottie Pippen and his ability to become, and as a point guard, you don't think you'd want to learn from Chris Paul? Like there's value beyond them ever stepping on the basketball court, but also the Lakers have a window. And if you have this window, use that window to go and try to, win an NBA championship. There's nothing wrong with some veterans. Especially guys to the level of like a Draymond Green and Chris Paul. To me, that's a no-brainer. To me, if you can bring these guys in, I think you could bring these guys in. They might have more of an impact on the Lakers winning a championship than getting another star or getting Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. right? Like you could argue, or let's say Gary Trent. Say you get like a Gary Trent Jr. and Miles Turner. You might think like, oh, Miles Turner is all around better than Draymond at this point in their careers. Okay, and I look at it like Gary Trent Jr. is younger and all around better than Chris Paul at this point in their career. Yes, but they don't have the experience. They don't have that pedigree. They don't have that championship DNA in them. They don't have the understanding and the IQ of certain situations and certain just game flow and stuff because they haven't been through those grinds, right? Like, yes, Chris Paul has disappeared in playoff games, absolutely. But he's also won and taken over playoff games. Draymond Green has won and taken over playoff games. What the value that they provide just beyond simply the game of basketball, what they could do for an organization and a team outside of that, outside of like the actual gameplay, is very valuable and would be very valuable for our young guys post LeBron, post Chris Paul, post Draymond Green. If you can get these guys, I think you absolutely do it. I do. I think if you can get these guys. Again, Chris Paul, I think, is very likely. I really do. Like, I really think Chris Paul, if he leaves the Phoenix Suns, he's going to Lakers. That's my, like, big guess. Like, Chris Paul is going to Lakers. Draymond, on the other hand, it's kind of a stretch in my opinion. But if it doesn't work out with the Warriors, I wouldn't be surprised. I could see Draymond doing that as like an FU too, right? Like I could see Draymond like, okay, like, watch, I'm going to go to the Lakers and we're going to smack you, right? See how good you do with me. I'm going to go win a championship with the Lakers. Like, so, I don't know. It wouldn't be that far-fetched. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. So, I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Would you love Chris Paul? Would you love Draymond Green? Do you think no? However you feel. Whatever your thoughts are, let me know down in the comments.